All right. Hey, I'd like to welcome Jacqueline Dompe. Jackie stepped into the CEO role at the architectural firm Cuningham last month. She's worked in multiple business leadership roles, including as managing director at JLL and senior vice president at AECOM. Hey, Jackie, thanks for joining us.
Thank you, JD. It's a pleasure.
Yeah, of course. First, how did you get into this role?
Well, I was approached for this opportunity, and I was very intrigued by what the potential could be. When I started talking to the folks at Cunningham, there was an immediate connection with this rich culture that Cunningham has developed over the years. So that was very intriguing. And then this idea that what Cunningham does is design and build and create spaces for for all of us to either live, work, and play. But the mindset at which our firm does that from a place of excellence and sustainability and social issues is really powerful. And I wanted to be a part of that. So I'm really happy to be here.
Awesome. So you were doing consulting work before this, right? What does that look like?
Yeah, well, my career, the consulting work was a point in time in my career, but my career really started with a small environmental consulting firm and grew into being acquired by AECOM. So I would say the bulk of my career has really been in firms and leading design practices. So that's been where I've spent my time, where I've always spent my time. And an opportunity like Cunningham is what brought me out of pseudo retirement. So the consulting was a way to stay engaged and relevant, but I've been with companies and big companies for the majority of my career.
Awesome. How would you say that work experience informs your transition into this new role?
Well, I think I've worked for really large companies. So those of you that know AECOM and JLL, they're big, publicly traded global companies. So I've worked with a diversity of talent, trying to achieve great things. And so my focus in those businesses has been about team building, relevant in the marketplace, and growing, and less from a volume or growing the business just for the sake of growth, but really creating purpose around what we do and aligning around that purpose and doing excellent work. So that kind of philosophy has stayed with me throughout the career, and what I will hopefully leverage here at Cunningham as well.
Yeah, that seems relevant to the rich culture of Cunningham that you mentioned. Could you tell me a bit about what that means, the rich
Yeah,
culture?
well, it's hard to describe, JD, but I will do my best. When I first started speaking to people at Cunningham, and even trying to do my research on the firm outside of people that worked there, there's this consistent feedback that people just love either working at Cunningham or with Cunningham, and it's a fairly humble group of professionals who care deeply about doing the right thing, and that culture is really pervasive, and it just feels right, and we have a lot of fun, and we take our work seriously, but it's this kind of care for each other and care for our clients that really spoke to me. And like I said, is people have that consistent feeling, whether they work at Cunningham, whether they've left and they still talk about Cunningham in really wonderful ways. So it's hard to describe, but it's very powerful.
Yeah. What do you think is the importance of this kind of work, whether that's in your role leading Cunningham or more broadly, just the work that Cunningham does?
Yeah, as I mentioned, being in design, and I use that term broadly, design, but historically and into the future, we're designing space, and it's space for people to interact. And I think that's very important. And it's how we are interacting right now, how we interact together in physical space. So it's that interaction of people and how that works within the environment and social context is extremely important just to society. So there is a really important responsibility that we have as an architecture firm and design firm to design space responsibly. And I think the other layer I'd like to add on to that is buildings in general create and are responsible for a significant amount of CO2 in our life. And so I think as architects, we also have a responsibility to not only minimize that impact, but actually create benefit to deal with some of the climate change issues we're all facing. So I think there's very, very strong social responsibility and environmental responsibility for what we're doing as a profession.
How do you, as CEO, make sure that that's something that the company is really caring about?
Yeah. Well, fortunately for me, as a new CEO coming into this firm, they care deeply about it. So I'm not having to do a lot of convincing that this is the right thing to do. It's part of the reason why I joined, because this is a firm that cares deeply about those issues, and it's very much a priority. So I think where I want to take this, though, is knowing that that's baseline and that there is this fundamental concern and interest in contributing in good ways. How do we just keep pushing ourselves to be better and better in that? And it becomes less of an exception and more of a rule. And how do we get better at that and keep tackling the issues that our world is facing? So it's a pretty it's a big lift for us in the industry, but a really important one. I see a lot of momentum.
Yeah. What I mean, can you say more about that? What's on the horizon for Cunningham?
Well, Cunningham, Cunningham has been the incubator of some pretty powerful technology. So I will continue to focus on how we can be better and influence our industry in the technology space. I think you'll see our projects being recognized for not just the design and the aesthetic quality of buildings and space, but how people are actually using it. So our kids learning in different and better ways, and are we having outcomes in that way? Are we creating wonderful healing places for our healthcare facilities so I think you'll start to see Cunningham's name associated more and more with some really wonderful outcomes for the people that actually interact and use the spaces we provide.
Yeah. What are there trends or changes that you're noticing within kind of the architectural industry or development more generally?
Well, I think technology, right? That's going to be a response of any CEO or business leader that you talk to. Technology is definitely at the forefront of all of our minds, and how do we stay relevant? So using technology, especially in the virtual space, which is an interesting challenge for architects, right? Because they build physical space, but how do we incorporate some of the virtual space into what we do? And the concept around moving from sustainability, which is a topic that we've all been involved in the profession, but moving forward and really thinking about regeneration and how we're using space to regenerate the environment and not just sustain it, because obviously that's not working too well for us right now. So we're really trying to push, the industry, not just Cunningham, but the industry is doing a really good job in pushing on those two issues in particular.
Yeah. What does that look like? Regeneration in design?
Yeah, so we're really focused on our carbon. So making sure that we're using materials and construction practices and designing in systems that are carbon neutral, in an ideal situation, or not carbon intensive. So that's the real focus for us is carbon, and locating buildings that are working within the fabric of a community to also minimize indirect carbon impacts as well.
Yeah. Are you seeing communities also pushing for this more on their end? Cities that want this, that are mandating things like this?
Cities are, clients are. So many municipalities around the U.S. have climate action plans. So this is starting to be required at the policy level, but certainly communities are requiring it, and then our clients, right? Regardless of what policy might be dictating, our clients also understand this is a really important, urgent issue, and are demanding it as well. So we're starting to see that sense of urgency actually result in some action, which is fantastic.
Right. but architects and developers still need to make money. How do you negotiate the balance of kind of this concept of maybe civic or social responsibility and profit?
Yeah. Well, luckily technology is on our side, so I think it's a bit. Uh, it's no longer the case that these solutions are too expensive. Much of what we're talking about is readily available in the market, so it's not necessarily going to be a big drain for clients in terms of implementing some of this. There's also huge savings on the operational side of our buildings when they're designed appropriately to minimize this type of impact, that it can actually cost less to operate. So over the long term, it's you know, it is the right thing to do, but it makes business sense as well from many different factors.
Yeah. What's your favorite part of working in this industry?
Oh, the creativity. I mean, I love to see idea generation. I love when teams aren't afraid to fail and they can, test things and try things and pivot when it maybe isn't ends up not being the idea that gets implemented. So I just think the collaboration, when you get the diversity of minds together to solve problems and to come up with creative solutions, that's super energizing to be.
Yeah. Yeah. Would you say COVID has helped to foster more opportunities for creativity and trying things, or has it stifled it and become more like we just need to make things happen?
Yeah, it's a great question. I mean, not COVID obviously has had many unfortunate social and health impacts to our world, but I do think it's also given us an opportunity to think and do differently. And it is a design problem, right, that we are solving, and how we work together and collaborate together. And so I think we should and we have been looking at that as a design opportunity to work together. So I wouldn't say that it's been a negative impact. I think we're just all trying to figure out how to make the best of it and think and do differently, which is an exciting opportunity.
Right. What projects does Cunningham go on, whether it's around, maybe around the country, that you think are especially interesting right now?
Yeah, well, let's see, to name a few, we've got the largest emergency room hospital in Doha in the Middle East. So that's been super exciting to see that and be developed. There's the largest modular housing project in Edina. So that's been an exciting one. And Cunningham, in its legacy, has been very active in the K through 12 schools, and there's some fantastic schools, buildings and outcomes in the Minneapolis area, which has been great. And I can't talk about all of our clients because they are confidential, but we do a lot of amazing theme park work, and we are also designing and building some campuses for a very large health data company, both here and in the UK. So some really interesting, creative. I would say some of those are big, but it's less about the scale. I think what excites us about the work we do is really the impact, and regardless of the scale of project or fee associated with that project, it is about the impact that we're having, and it makes these really exciting.
Yeah. How many how big is Cunningham? How many offices are throughout the world or the country?
Yeah, well, we hired 55 people so far this year, so that's pushing us close to 300 around the US. Yeah. And we like to say we are truly a work from anywhere company, and we do have people dispersed around, but we're in key locations, and obviously in Minneapolis, San Diego, Los Angeles, Phoenix, and Las Vegas. So those are our core markets where we have a physical location right now, but we are from anywhere. So we have people outside of those locations too, and we're figuring out how that all works.
Yeah, great. I am not sure that I have any other questions. Is there anything you want to add that I didn't ask about?
No, I really appreciate the opportunity, and it'll be great to stay in touch, and I'm excited to see where Cunningham ends up after all this. It's going to be great.
Yeah, for sure. All right. Thank you so much, Jackie.
Thank you, JD. Have a great day.
Take care. You too. Bye.
All right. Bye-bye.